Alright, so I wanted to do this video mostly because the game is coming up pretty soon on its 1 year anniversary. And still to this date, I see a lot of basically misinformation, misconceptions of modding Skyrim VR. And I wanted to give some advice to people that are new to it or haven't modded. Um, that aren't really sure what's true and where to look for stuff. So, in case people are curious, Skyrim VR is built off of Skyrim Special Edition. The main game files are basically the same as an older version of SSE. Anybody that uses Xedit can come in here and actually look at the main game's records and see that there really isn't any difference. They added a new ESM file and obviously changed some things in the exe, but overall, in terms of modding, it's special edition. Um, Unfortunately, some influential people in the modding community, particularly someone here, believes otherwise. And when you have somebody influential in a community like this, bad information gets passed around. And so that's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to make this video. Um, so far, I've put about, it's showing 568 hours in game, and then God knows how many hours playing with mods, editing mods, merging mods, everything. I've been doing a lot of everything for the last year. Um, so when it comes to modding, what I think the biggest issue people have is when you're new to it and you go to the Nexus and you're looking around, um, you don't know where to start. I mean, there's tens of thousands of mods, and there's a good 100 or so every single week. New this week, 136, and it's pretty much like that every single week. So how do you know what to use? What do you know, or what? How do you know what works? Um, and it's one of those things that you kind of have to learn over time. I think one of the worst things people can do is just, if they're brand new, is just go on Nexus and start downloading stuff, or go to like um, popular of all time, and just because it's a popular mod, just start going through these and installing all of them. You're pretty much guaranteed to have crashes, problems. Half the stuff probably won't work. Um, Skyrim VR or not, just regular Skyrim in general, the same thing would apply. I know when I first started in the original Skyrim many years ago, same thing. I went on Nexus, I just started downloading all these mods. I'd get in game and it would crash after a couple seconds, and same thing, and I'd delete some mods and same thing and same thing. And I did that for a while until I just quit. It wasn't really until Special Edition was out for about a year or two. I tried modding again. I got a little more into it, but not too much. And then finally Skyrim VR came out and I got really into modding, to the point where I finally learned how mods work, how records work, how to edit mods, edit records, combine mods, and then you can really see how everything comes together and why things may or may not work. Um, so, um, so where to start? Well, with Skyrim VR, I would recommend starting at our subreddit here in the guide compendium, which we just updated and put in this Google Drive document for us so we could easily edit it. Because there's more than one of us that contributes to this document. When you have a sticky that's just text, only the person that made the sticky can edit it. So we put it in this document so we can all edit it. So if you're completely new to modding, I would recommend reading through some of this stuff. Um, my beginner video that I put up right here, that goes through installing Mod Organizer 2 and the step-by-step and installing some graphical and sound mods just to get you started. Once you're more comfortable with modding, we have some bigger guides here. Now, there's a lot of guides um, around the internet, a lot of big comprehensive guides like Lexi's guide and some other ones on Nexus. The issue with those is since they're not tailored for Skyrim VR, unless you know what you're doing, if you just follow them step by step, you're probably going to run into issues because not every mod's going to work. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about what works, what doesn't work, what to look for when you're looking for mods you want to use, and stuff like that. Over time, you just kind of you get to learn how mods work a little more, and it makes a lot more sense um, when you're building a list. You'll hear a lot like this mod doesn't work for me because of so and so, and in my experience, a lot of times it's not that specific mod that doesn't work, it's interactions with other mods in that mod. There's just some mods that interact with so many other mods that have a lot of issues that if you use that mod, it's not necessarily that mod's fault, but it affects other mods, which in turn break that mod. So it is good to look through posts on any, if you're going to any mod on the Nexus, there's usually a post section here, and people post their comments about issues, and you can read through them. There's also usually a little bug tab where people post bugs and stuff, so that's also a good one to look through. So when talking Skyrim VR specifically, what works? Well, we do have our own version of script extender. So if you're getting that, make sure you're getting the VR version. Now, with script extender, mods based on specific versions need files made for that version. So I'll show you some examples in a second, but because we're not the same build as the SSE version, just because the mod's a SKSE mod doesn't automatically mean it'll work for us, and I'll show you how to look for that. The next thing is SkyUI. We do have a SkyUI for Skyrim VR, but it is not the one on Nexus. You have to get the one here on GitHub. Um, this one was designed for Skyrim VR, and it works great. I've been using it pretty much since the first release, which was way back in September. Yeah, so I can't see any reason why anybody wouldn't want to use it. Um, so those are the two big ones that people always wonder about if these two are working in Skyrim VR, and they definitely are. So, and I would recommend people to use them. All right, so now when talking about Skyrim mods that work and don't work for Skyrim VR when you're looking around Nexus, the obvious things to look out for would be stuff that changes the camera. So, for example, this one, camera head tracking. Well, the camera is controlled by your HMD, so something that's going to take control from that, it's either not going to work or it's going to have a lot of issues, so I just wouldn't even bother. Now getting into SKSE script extender mods, what you want to look for is DLL files, basically the plugin files. These files are built for specific versions of script extender. Now, since we're on a different version here, if there is one, it most likely will not work for our version unless there's an extra one listed. So all you have to do is, if you're curious, and you should always be going to the description and requirements for mods and seeing what else they might require. And remember, you're just looking at requirements for the mod, not mods requiring this file. Those are just other mods that require this as a master. You're just looking at right here. This requires SkyUI and SKSE. So you're going to come here to Files, Preview File Contents, and then you're looking for this SKSE plugins folder. If it has this and it has a DLL, well, if it has a plugins folder, it's going to have a DLL in it. It will only work if it has a VR version of this DLL. So I'll show you an example of one that has that. Actually, it's the containers one. I'm trying to think of the J containers. So this one, if you go here, you can see it has its own VR version. And if you go to the preview file contents, if you scroll down, you can see plugins, and it has a DLL, but this DLL was compiled for our version of Script Extender. If you try to install this one right here, it all looks the same pretty much, but this version right here was not made for our version of Script Extender. It will not work. So you have to look out for VR versions. With SKSE mods, not all of them have those plugin files. Actually, a lot of them don't. So I think Deadly Dragons doesn't. I think that's an SKSE one. Yeah, so if you go into the files here and you're looking at them, there's no plugins folder. Even though it's a script extender mod, it just uses basic scripts, which are actually compressed into this BSA. But the scripts themselves aren't reliant on a specific version most of the time, so they should work with any version of Sky with script extender. So it'll work with ours, it'll work with SSE's version, whatever. So that's the main things to look out for when you're looking through mods that are script extender mods. Some other examples I wanted to put up here were violins. So obviously kill moves don't work for our character. So you're not going to get like the arrow attached arrow camera kill move style thing. It'd be interesting in VR, but anyways, but it does work. Like for example, this mod does work for NPCs. So I actually use this mod for the NPCs. They use their kill moves more often with this mod. And you have some options like beheading and stuff. So it's one of those things is kind of understanding how mods work. So parts of it could work and parts of it not. Let's see, another another example I guess we can go over is the unofficial patch. Everybody uses the unofficial patch because so many freaking things require the unofficial patch to be installed. Every single one of these mods requires unofficial patch. Now the reason this doesn't work properly for SkyrimVR is because it's based on the current version of SSE, and the current version of SSE has some differences from our version. One other thing is this has patches for stuff that's in Creation Club. Well, SkyrimVR doesn't have access to Creation Club. So that's another reason why when they updated this to basically past 4.12, it caused a lot of issues. So if you're using this mod on this version, you're going to run into problems. You might not see them right away, but you're going to run into problems eventually. I do have a version that works for SkyrimVR. You can get it in my guide here. It's basically just an older version of this mod that he refuses to host. Anyways, so there's that. But yeah, when you're going through, and so it's kind of my basic thing when I'm looking through mods. I mean, by now I just kind of know what each mod kind of does, and I could tell for the most part if it's going to work. But like standalone follower mods is pretty much all going to work. There's not really any reason why a follower mod wouldn't specifically work for Skyrim VR. Um, all these texture mods, these are all going to work fine. New monsters I mean, there's very few mods that you're going to find that aren't going to work. I think my current list, I have 560, and actually there's quite a few more than that because this patch I put a lot of random mods in there. So I'm well over 600 on this build. And I mean, going through, I've built up to 600 plus mod lists like 3 to 4 times from scratch since Skyrim VR came out, and you're really gonna not find very many mods that don't work. The biggest thing is interactions between mods, and the problem with interactions between mods is it's kind of hard to understand what causes what and what's breaking what until you get more experience with modding and know how it all works. So my recommendation is to stick with guides that were geared for VR until you have a little more experience with modding and you can kind of troubleshoot issues you may have. We have lots of videos and other guides for different aspects of troubleshooting and modding in general. Um, Always have a lot of good stuff here on on the subreddit. We got this VR specific mods section now that has all the mods that were made specifically with VR in mind. So that's always a good one to come and check out. There's still quite a few of us that are active playing the game on the moderator team. Um, I'm on here pretty much every day. I'm pretty much building mods. I'm doing edits right now. I'm doing some enemy overhaul edits, combining 4 or 5 different enemy overhauls. So there's going to be updates. People are working on stuff. We got the inverse kinematics mod. He's been working on it, improving it on each one. He's got a new version coming out pretty soon if you're the type that likes to see the full body in VR. Um, yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming. We're a year in, and I think it's gonna be another good year. So yeah, that's kind of just what I wanted to go over. Just a quick little talk about mods in general. If people have more suggestions for videos, I haven't really got anything recently, but just let me know. You can PM me on Reddit, um, Arrow1X on there if you want. Um, if not, I'll see you around. Take care.